We are going to be talking about Disney Cruise Line versus Royal Caribbean and which one might fit your family the best.
Hey vacation dreamers, welcome to Book Solid, the podcast where two travel advisors share insider tips, talk about our favorite destinations, bucket list experiences, and everything you need to know to make your next vacation unforgettable. We'll break down what's included, what to watch out for, and keep it real with plenty of laughs along the way, while we help you plan with confidence. Let's jump in.
So let's get into it. Where should we start?
I will say, just to put a caveat, as we break into both of the cruise lines, honestly, you can't go wrong with either cruise line. I truly feel that they are both incredible cruise lines, specifically for families. It really just comes down to what does your family want. We can give you pros and cons to both cruise lines. Any family, I would easily put them on both ships, like both cruise lines. They're absolutely fantastic. I've sailed both, so I can attest to both of them. Obviously, being the Disney person, if I am going to cruise and I have the option and I have the budget, I'm going on Disney. But you will always catch me also doing Royal Caribbean. So take that with what you will.
I have not sailed on Royal, but I've sailed on Disney couple times, and for me and my family and kind of where I come from, that makes me hesitant for Royal is that it almost seems more overwhelming with all the activities and stuff. And like my son gets overwhelmed very quickly with the amount of people and things to do, and as do I. So that has always been my hesitation to not take my kiddos, to where Disney felt very simple. They have a lot of activities on board, don't get me wrong, but it didn't feel like an overwhelming amount to where we were occupied but not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I will say, as I've been on the Utopia class, I've been on Utopia of the Seas. So your bigger ships, your Utopia and Icon of the Seas, Icon class, I guess I should say. Obviously, those two class ships are going to have the most activities. I will say, now that I've done both, you can easily, it's not super overwhelming like you think it is. Obviously, Oasis and Icon are going to have the most activities because they are massive ships, especially Icon. Icon is the biggest class of ships. They just announced a brand new ship joining the fleet in, I think it's 2028. They're constantly rolling out ships. Right now, they're currently working on the Icon class, getting all of those ships out. But I will say, I think their organization of how they structure all the activities, everything is laid out in the app. It's very similar to Disney Cruise Line. You just pick and choose what you want to do. You could show up and just do nothing and just go with the flow. You can plan everything to the minute if you want. It just kind of depends on what your family wants to do. But I will say it's pretty organized.
We have two very different kids, to where one wants to do all the things and the other one is a little less wanting to do all the things, and the older he gets, the less he wants to do. So, but for us, and I'll be honest, I'm a helicopter mom. I am going to keep track of you. And our kids were younger when we went, but even at 11, I wasn't comfortable with him wandering the ship on his own. So I think that's kind of what gets me about a Royal ship as well.
I guess we can kind of talk about kids clubs because there are differences, and I can obviously speak to Royal and how they're different, which could be a make or break for a lot of families, honestly.
That's a good place to start. Let's talk about kids clubs.
You want to talk about Disney?
Royal?
Okay. Okay. So I will say they also have a kids club. It's like the Adventure Oceanaires Club, whatever. They have them broken down per age group, depending on, all of their ages. They have the little babies, they have toddlers, they have school age, they have an area for like the older kids, teenagers. Like they have all of those designated areas like Disney does. However, I will say the biggest deciding factor that I feel like is going to be a make or break for a lot of families is usually, and I won't speak to Disney, I'll shut up. I won't say it yet. When you're on a royal ship, at least, again, I will speak to Utopia because that's a specific ship I was on, but I imagine they work pretty much the exact same way. It's actually based on time increments. So you drop your kid off at 9 o'clock, you're going to pick them up at 11, or whatever times the kids club is open, that's when your kid is allowed to go. It may be for an hour, it may be for 2 hours. When that time is up, you need to go pick them up. So I feel like for a lot of families, I know when we went, there was one family, she was an agent that works with us. That was one of her biggest, it wasn't like a make or break for her. She still really loves Royal. Like she'll obviously sail again, but she feels that's the biggest difference between the two cruise lines, and something that could potentially be a major deciding factor for a lot of families is, you know, you're kind of tied to those specific time frames. Like if you really want to stay laid out at night, the kids club is not going to be open. You know, if you want to do like super super early, you know, you need to get ready, you just need the kids out of the way so they can go play whatever, they're not going to be open. Like they have very specific time frames that they're available, and when they close, you have to go pick them up.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So for Disney, they have it broken up by ages as well. You have your littles 6 months to under 3, 3 to 10, and then there's an Edge Club for 11 to 14, and then the Teen Vibe Club from 14 to 17. Our experience was it's open all the time, and there are counselors there in all of the clubs. Your itty bitties you need to make reservations for, but the other groups, now there were times when the Oceaneer Club, they have the lab and then they have the club. Sometimes one side would be closed while it's like an open house, and then so the kiddos that are in there spending time are in one side versus the other, and they are there late, which is funny. My oldest wanted to do the late things, but then my youngest was so exhausted, he was like, no, I'm ready for bed, it's 9 o'clock. So, and what's nice about Disney too is if you have that late dining, the youth counselors will come up about halfway through dinner, grab any kiddos who want to go back to the kids club and take them back while the parents get to finish a quiet dinner. So I feel then that the kids clubs on Disney are very much catered to the family as a whole after hearing Royals,
Mm-hmm.
and cater to the kiddos and how they want to and are flexible. Then what I liked about the Edge was that if you're a parent that doesn't want your child to roam free at age 11, you can let the counselors know to, let's say, they need to call you before they let your child go. And then, however, they had scavenger hunts around the ship that then these kids were let loose on their own. So pick your poison there. But for the most part, the kids clubs I feel on the Disney cruise, they're straightforward, they're secure. The counselors really get to know those kiddos, especially in the older clubs. When I was walking through on the Wish, in the Vibe Club, a teen came in and was talking to the counselors, and they were talking like they've been best friends for years. And maybe they have been, I don't know. But I was like, that's really special for that child then, or that teen, call them a child, that teen, to have that connection on the ship, even if, I mean, for the short amount of time they're on there.
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, I mean, you hear it all the time. about Disney. That's something, it doesn't matter if it's Walt Disney World, Disneyland. I can't speak to the international parks because, I mean, other than Disneyland Paris, we can't book any of them. I don't really hear about it on social media unless it's like some really massive influencer traveling. So I will only speak to obviously the two US parks and then the cruise line. Like Disney truly prides themselves on their connections with who is coming to them. Like they really make a point to really learn about the family, learn about the kids, what are they interested in, to really make that experience for them something that they would want to come back for. Not like, this was fun, but we may or may not come back. I will say Royal does a really good job when they are in the kids club. Like I have heard from kids, like they absolutely love it. I mean, I'm a teacher, so all the kids that I'm with are fourth grade age, so they're able to talk to me and all the things. I have a lot of kids that have been on cruises, they've been with Royal, they've been to the kids clubs. Even the agent that went on that trip with me, her daughter absolutely loved the kids club. The only thing she hated was being told to leave. I think a lot of it is because they had to like clean up, sanitize, reset. That way everybody can, and it was kind of more so around like meal times. That way, family time. Like, okay, you need to go eat lunch. Take your kids and go eat lunch, So it's usually, if I remember correctly, they're only shut down for like an hour or so and then they come back. But like I said, it's usually around meal times that they'll shut down to kind of reset and then, they can go back. But, whereas Disney Cruise Line, they could be there for hours. And good luck getting your kids out of the kids club. Good luck
But
to you.
note that they don't feed them. So
True.
you're gonna need to come get your kid. The only time a kids club will feed the child is if they are in the kids club on Castaway Key. That if your child is in that kids club over lunch, they will bring lunch to the child in that area. I'm not going to call it a club, but so yes, making sure you feed. They used to, I think, back before in the good old days of cruising, but they do not feed them in the clubs anymore.
I guess a good segue. I think a good segue would be like meals, because obviously Disney is polar opposite to how Royal Caribbean works. So I guess that would be a good segue. Because again, it could be a deciding factor for a lot of families. It could be either way.
Go for it.
So Royal Caribbean is pretty basic. You typically have, and it's with Disney too, where you have two offered dining times, usually around like 5:30-ish. They kind of guesstimate within 15 minutes before and after. The later time really depends. I've seen it sometimes where it's like 7:30. I've seen as late as like 8:15. So that last one kind of depends. They also do something on Royal Caribbean called My Time, which is actually a lot of what my families choose to use. Basically, all that means is you literally just go to dinner whenever you want. You don't have that specific set time, which I think is really nice because that's not something that Disney does. But Amanda will talk about why, because there's reasons why. Because that would be really weird. With Royal, obviously you have your specialty dining, which obviously costs extra. It's not built into your cruise package. So there is that. They have a lot of fantastic options between Italian, steakhouses, Japanese, like you name it, they have it. They have a lot of great options. Or they just have the main dining hall, and it scales, and it also kind of depends on the ship too, but a lot of like the bigger ships, obviously, it's multiple levels. For the main dining hall, you could be seated with a group of people, you could be seated with your family. You do have to make those preferences when you are getting ready for your cruise and all the things. Make sure if you're working with a travel advisor, make sure that's communicated to them, like, hey, we don't care if we sit with other families, we're fine with that, or hey, we really just want to be with our family only, can you please make sure you put in that request, whatever. So you'll sit at the same table during your main dining experience, whatever time you decide to go. You will also have the same wait staff, which is super nice. They'll get to know you. So by the second night, you'll have your drinks for the most part set out, unless you're kind of one of those people that's like, today I kind of want like a Dr. Pepper. Tomorrow I'm going to want, a Sprite or something, but they'll always check with you. So that is super nice, is you are going to have the same wait staff. The menu will change. You're not going to, just because you're at the same dining location does not mean you're going to get the same meals. On the cruise that I was on, we had 3 different nights, so none of the menu items were the same. They had a couple, just kind of staple options like chicken and basic meals, because some people are just not super adventurous with their food. It's pretty basic. I wouldn't say it was like terrible food. I thought it was still really good. But when you compare it to Disney, it's really hard for me to base that. Like I said, I didn't have any problems with it. I think it's really good. Like I said, you don't have to do the main dining experience. You could literally go to I cannot think of the name. I think it's Soriano's or whatever the pizza place is. Their pizza is fantastic. Just note the line for the pizza is really long almost at all times of the day, because it's, you can have as much pizza as you want. So it gets pretty busy. Obviously, specialty dining, which is options. I have a lot of families who are booking like anniversary cruises, so they'll book packages for, so many different specialty dining experiences, whatever. So it's pretty customizable with Royal, which is really nice. So if you like the personalization of your dining experience, maybe go Royal.
Do they have a buffet for dinner too, or is it only the main
They have options for lunch, which is at one of like specialty locations, but not for dinner.
breakfast and lunch for a buffet?
Mm-hmm.
So that's similar to Disney, is that their buffet is only breakfast and lunch. Then for their dinner dining, there's, like Brianna said, there's 2 different times, but Disney has this thing called rotational dining, and similar to Royal, where you get to keep your servers, you rotate between the restaurants, and there's 3 restaurants per ship. So each night of your sailing, you'll rotate, or if you'll know where you're going. You got to get in. You don't rotate every night depending on the length of your cruise. If it's a 3-night cruise, you will. But if it's a 5-night, you might stick in one spot 2 nights in a row, but eventually you'll make it to all 5 nights or longer. But your person moves with you. They really get to know you. Like Brianna said, the food is phenomenal for all the meals. A lot of kid-friendly staples like your chicken fingers, your mac and cheese. I think one thing for my ranch child was ranch was not as readily available for our chicken fingers and our french fries, but he would try more of the different things, to where my other child, he was on a dairy allergy at the time, so he was like, I just want the cheeseburger. Great, love that. We're in this giant ship and let's just constantly eat cheeseburgers.
Hey.
So, and like Brianna said, for Royal, you can select your preferences, whether you want to be closer to the entertainment. There's a private table option, which I selected for my cruise in September when it's just me and my sister. I'm like, I don't want to sit with other people. What is it? Near the entertainment, a quiet spot. So if you have a child that doesn't like those loud noises, they will put you in a little bit quieter area. The other thing with Disney Cruise is they have pool deck food. And I will say this is the one thing that varies vastly per ship, and not in the best way, in my opinion. My experience on the Dream and my experience on the Wish were 2 very different pool deck experiences. I'll finish this and I'll go back to my other thought here. The Dream, I felt their pool deck was open a lot longer and into the evening. Like, we could probably eat our dinner there and be fine and not need to go to the dining hall, but we did anyways. To where the Wish, I felt like everything shut down at like 6:00 before.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were stuck with your dining rotation or room service. And I didn't love that, because that takes away your options, especially with kiddos. I also didn't feel the Wish had the variety that the Dream did. It didn't have like the fresh fruit and the wraps and sandwiches that the Dream had, that I fell in love with and I dream about, literally. Those chicken Caesar wraps and tuna wraps delicious.
Do you also wonder if it's the length of the sailing that could play into it? Because wasn't your dream sailing like 5 nights or something?
It
Whereas our
was, but that shouldn't matter in theory for how long they're open at night.
I'm just talking in terms of like what is offered.
Um, I mean, it shouldn't, the food, the type, maybe, the variety and options, but the dream didn't have the options then. The Wish had those taco bowls, the barbecue station, they had pizza and hamburgers. But I would take the lighter options over the dry yuck of the taco bowls. Excuse
I really like the taco bowl.
my problem is I don't like salsa. So I couldn't put anything liquid in there to give it any. And they don't have queso. They have queso fresca, which is the crumbled cojita type cheese. So there's nothing, if you don't like salsa, there's nothing to make it extra. My opinion. However, the Fantasy just installed the taco station, but I hear they still have the sandwiches and the wraps. So we are fingers crossed that they still have them in September. The other thing I will say about the differences between the Disney Cruise Line ships, and so then making sure not only are you choosing Disney Cruise Line versus Royal for your family, but finding which ship even between the two that fit, because the Wish class ships on the Disney Cruise Lines, those dining experiences are to another level.
They're much more adventurous.
They're much more, but they're also more entertaining than our ones on the Dream were and the Fantasy. You have Artist Palette with the screens, but that's about as much entertainment as you're going to get. The Magic or the Wonder has a character one. Is it Tiana or Little Mermaid?
I think it's Tiana.
So the Magic class ships, again, have a little bit different dining experiences than the Dream. I don't know what they did with the Dream class ships, but they were like, just kidding, we don't need it. And then all of a sudden now they do. Must have been the age of the screens came out. So that definitely differences between your dining between the two cruise lines. And again, it's just finding one what works best for you and your family and what you want, how you want to spend your days.
I will say for Disney, something to note that I don't think is widely known unless you just know this about Disney. You will not know your dining rotation until you check into your ship. Yeah. So you will not know your dining rotations. You will not know day one where you're going to be eating until you have checked in. It's super frustrating when you're trying to plan everything, blah, blah, blah. It's just how the cruise line has always worked, at least ever since I started cruising with them in, 2016, 2017. That's how it's always been since then, the past 10 years or so. I can't speak to before then because I obviously never cruised before then. But that's something to know is if you're wanting specific days, you can absolutely put in a request. Disney will always do their best to fulfill your request. Like, hey, I really want to go to Animator's Palette on night one. Can you please, help us make that happen? They will do their absolute best, but there's hundreds of, if not thousands of other families on that ship too, who may also have requests. So, they will do everything in their power to make that happen. Just know it. Once you get on the ship, you will know exactly where you're dining each night. It'll lay it all out. You'll be able to view the menus and all of that. Like, you can pre-plan from then. Like, if that's your thing, you want to know exactly what you're going to be eating each night. Or at least just kind of like how to plan your outfits, because that's me. I'm very much one of those on Disney. I have to have an outfit plan for each little event. So for me, it's
Now, that's not me, but I need to know what I'm getting as I'm walking in the door, what I already have in mind. And there's ways you can look up the menu ahead of time too.
Oh yeah.
But yes, that app is going to be your best friend as soon as you get walk on that ship.
I'll speak to one because I'm a Texas. I can't even talk. Because I'm a Texas local, this is a massive deciding factor for a lot of my families because a lot of my families want to do Galveston. Here's the problem currently. We've heard talks that this will change. We have heard nothing probably in the last year or so. So we don't know when this is going to happen. If you are wanting to sail out of Galveston and you're wanting to do Disney Cruise Line, you are pretty much stuck. I think the window is like, I think it's like maybe November and maybe January. There is a very small window that DCL is out of Galveston. It ends mid-April. That's it. It is a tiny window of time. Now, this is also where you're going to find Marvel Day at Sea, and I'm pretty sure Pixar Day at Sea. I can't remember Pixar. I remember Marvel because I've had families, but I think Pixar is Port Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale.
Pixar is out of the Fantasy and Port Canaveral right now. It used to be Magic out of Galveston, but they switched it this year. Yep.
That's what it is. But yes, I've had a lot of families that obviously live somewhere in Texas, and they're like, we really want to sail through Galveston. It makes it a lot easier, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. Do you want to go DCL or are we going Royal Caribbean? They're like, well, we really like Disney. And I'm like, okay, well, are you wanting to travel basically from January to March? Because that's pretty much our window. So that, that could be a really big deciding factor. We've heard, Disney has not confirmed anything. They did confirm a brand new ship. Maybe that'll be the change that we've been looking for. There have been talks that there's going to be a permanent ship. What that ship is, when it's going to be, we have heard nothing since. Now, with Royal Caribbean, you do currently have two ships that are currently stationed in Galveston. You've got I think it's the Harmony, and then I have it in front of me, the Mariner of the Seas. So the Harmony of the Seas is the Oasis class ship, so a bigger ship that's also with Utopia. And then you have the Mariner, which is on the Voyager, so not super small ship, not super big, kind of mid-tier. So a bigger ship versus a mid ship. And then we're supposed to have in 2027, we're going to get Icon of the Seas, a big boy. So, and that's going to come permanently. So we are going to have 3 ships in Galveston, and you pretty much have a good variety of ships. You've got a big boy, you got another big boy, and then a mid-size. So it kind of just depends what your family wants to do. Obviously, the bigger ships are going to have the most entertainment, the most things to do on the ship, versus smaller ships that are a lot more intimate kind of thing. Typically, with the Mariner of the Seas, it's really only 4 and 5 night, whereas the Harmony is the week-long cruises. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. Icon of the Seas. I can't remember how long those are off the top of my head because I only have the 2026 itinerary right in front of me. I don't have 2027. But I'm right now, currently, it's like 3 and 4 night, but I can't remember what Galveston is. So, something to note if you're a Texas local going out of Galveston, those are, I mean, you're very shortened right now with Disney.
So thinking of then ports and your family and planning and choosing your cruise line and ship with kiddos, Port Canaveral is going to probably be, in my opinion, your easiest with kids, no matter which cruise line you choose. I feel Disney makes it seamless with Disney World and their transportation to and from.
Top tier.
Royal's absolutely very doable. You could still stay at Disney for a minute and then take any type of transportation. There's plenty of private transportation options that will take you to the port, especially if you need card seats. For Disney, then we have Fort Lauderdale, which is where we sailed out of. I feel it's gotten a lot better down there for seamless for Disney cruise. It didn't feel very seamless when I went. It's been a couple years. So what's nice is that it's smaller, the airport's closer. So it's a little less of that drive over to between Port Canaveral. So there's pros and cons. Flights are usually cheaper into Fort Lauderdale if you're coming from the Midwest like me. And then Again, certain times of the year, you have DCL out of San Diego, and then their Alaska cruises. I know Royal also has their Alaska cruise. Royal's a little more spread out in various ports, so finding you can pretty much find wherever you're at to find a port where Royal is.
Yeah, Royal, that's the nice thing because there's over 30 plus ships at this point. I think we're getting closer to 40. We're not locked into specific ports like Port Canaveral. That is the most common port for any cruise line. Like when you think of cruising, you think of Port Canaveral. Like that, typically when people cruise, most people think of Caribbean sailings. We're going to go to, the Bahamas. Like that is generally what people think of, which is, you can also do Fort Lauderdale, but usually it's Port Canaveral. Like that is what Port Canaveral is known for, is their Caribbean sailings to the Bahamas and then their private islands, depending on what cruise line you do. But with Royal, they're literally everywhere. You can go places up north, like New Jersey, all the way up there, like, Vancouver. Like, there's so many different ports. You're a lot more flexible with it, which is super nice. DCL, I mean, there's only so many ships. So you're a little bit more limited. How many do we have now? 10? 8? 9? I don't know. I can't keep up right now. They've launched so many ships recently.
5, 6, 7. 7. And we'll have 8 with the new, 7, 8 with the Adventure, 9 with the Believe.
We're going to have 13 by the end of 2031. They're literally going to announce a ship basically each year, which is insanity. But anyway, Disney is a lot more limited. Obviously, they have several ships in Port Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale, Galveston at specific times of the year. But that's really more so like the Magic and the Wonder. Those are the two ships that I feel like move the most. They're the ones that do a lot more itineraries because they're smaller ships. They're easier to get in and out of places, blah, 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 versus the bigger ships, where it's going to be a lot more challenging because they're a little bit bigger.
How far out is Royal booking currently?
2028.
So that's something to think about too. If you want to plan and you're a planner and we want to take a cruise in 2028 or even 2027, Royal is going to give you a little bit more flexibility in those dates, to where at Disney we are currently sitting at September of 2027, which still feels like a long way away, don't get me wrong. 12, 14 months ahead. And the further you book out your cruise, the better price you're going to get, because as the rooms fill up, the price goes up. So keeping up then to the Wish is going into dry dock here soon. So that'll change some things and we don't quite know what that looks like. But the best way for you to make sure you're choosing the right cruise line and ship for your family is to work with a travel advisor. And of course, Brianna and I are travel advisors. Brianna's going to be better with Royal and Disney. I'm going to be better with just Disney, although I can sell Royal. But working with somebody, don't try to do this on your own. We're going to be able to walk you through which ship fits you best. We're going to be able to remind you of these important dates. For Disney, it's online check-in activities. For Royal, it's making sure you buy your soda package if you want one.
And that changes daily, but that's another topic of discussion. Royal's flexible in terms of booking everything. The second you book, you can pretty much make your reservations. You can buy the soda package, blah, blah, blah. Disney, there's a lot of deadlines, like specific dates, like Amanda just said, like you have specific windows for when excursions open. I think it's roughly like 6 months in advance or something like that, 3 months, but something around that time. Then you'll have your online check-in when excursions close, all of that. It's a lot more hard dates, whereas Royal, it's a lot more flexible. I feel like that's a big difference. Like Disney is a lot more cut and dry. Like this is what it is. Royal Caribbean is a lot more flexible.
So working with a travel advisor is going to be to set you up for success on your cruise, whether it be Royal or Disney. So whichever one fits your family the best. Follow along, subscribe, We will hopefully be back next week. Uh, and you know what? Maybe we'll get that guest on here that we're keep waiting for. But we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
That's it for this episode, Vacation Dreamers. We hope you picked up some tips, ideas, and a little extra magic for your next adventure. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for even more travel tips and updates. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep planning, and we'll see you real soon.